like being in crowds, walking home, taking public transport, and how this perception alters behavior. We did the research, explored social media, and surveyed 186 people, 96 men and 86 women, and finally interviewed 13 women and 12 men. But first, the backdrop.
According to INEGI, 21.9 million people in Mexico reported victimization in 2024. Only 7.1% of crimes were reported. Main reasons for not reporting are authority issues, 60%, waste of time, 34%, distrust, 12.7%. At night, just 41.3% feel safe walking alone, 33.6% women, and 50% men. His research focused on where people feel safe and why choices like rerouting, avoiding hours, or asking for company are reliable.
After the explosion of violent crimes in 2012, with outback brothels in the middle of town and domestic violence being one of the most reported crimes, it's not surprising that people in Monterrey can agree on which areas to avoid and why, as this sets up an unsafe environment both indoors and outdoors. But how do people determine this? We found some information on social media. On X, Info7 reported a woman being mugged in downtown Monterrey, while an independent user also uploaded a story about a man being shot dead in downtown Monterrey. Finally, we also found a reporter talking about how a man was attacked in Garcia.
From the interviews, we got that most of them knew pretty well what zones to avoid and were considered violent.
Siento que, por ejemplo, el Cerro de la Campana es bastante peligroso. Más que nada creo que por los altos índices de pobreza. Siento que todas las zonas que tienen un alto índice de pobreza suelen ser las más peligrosas, por lo mismo de que hay una calidad deficiente en la educación en esas zonas.
O sea, nada más que nada los lugares como Santa Catarina, Escobedo, Juárez también, porque, o sea, bueno, yo he escuchado que hay muchísimo pandillas, delincuentes, pandillas, y muchísima, o sea, y es como muchas las muertes que hay por esa zona, entonces yo consideraría que son como las más peligrosas.
Meanwhile, interviews prove that infrastructure availability is directly linked to a zone's socioeconomic status, meaning low-income areas have less opportunities for infrastructure, which increases the chances of violent crimes as well as their intensity.
"24 people from experience, 74 people from what other people had said, and 82 people know from the news." People's alerts spike with poor lighting, low presence, and empty streets. But what factors influence your feeling of insecurity?
On the surveys, people replied with lack of police, 71.4%, being followed, 62.2%, lonely streets, 47%, and lack of lighting, 45.9%.
The conclusion of Hypothesis 1 is true. Built environment conditions, people's routes, and timing, since the survey results demonstrate that people are clearly aware that urban elements related to infrastructure are what's most responsible for their feelings of insecurity.
Women report a higher perceived risk, and the risk differs.
According to INEGI in Mexico, in 2021, 64.71% of women perceived their state as unsafe, about 12% higher than men. That's because, according to Dr. Chloe Keel from Griffin University School of Criminology and Criminal Justice, women experience targeted discreet harassment in everyday activities, causing constant awareness that turns into changing their whole way of being, just to feel a sense of calm. For social media, we found on Twitter and Facebook. On Twitter, we found a post about a girl that was kidnapped outside the bus central while she was waiting for an Uber, and found dead days later. And on Facebook, a post that talks about an influencer that was killed in her own live stream. Our interviewed shared their opinion about gender gap and danger perception.
Para los hombres consideraría que es similar la inseguridad. Obviamente no están sujetos a tantas cosas como las mujeres, pero creo que la mayor inseguridad al caminar por Monterrey es preocuparte si te van a asaltar, preocuparte si te van a atropellar, y creo que para las mujeres es eso y un poco más.
No siento que haya una diferencia entre inseguridad hacia mujeres o inseguridad hacia hombres, pero sí hay como zonas muy inseguras.
Al igual, tanto para hombres y mujeres no es tan seguro estar ahí en la calle, ya que pues puede pasar de todo a cualquier hora y a quien sea.
But there are also different opinions.
Yo creo que para las mujeres es más insegura que a comparación de los hombres. Creo que pues no solo la ciudad, sino el país es algo pues como que pues por la cultura un poco machista. Eh, yo creo que eso afecta bastante pues en muchos aspectos y uno de esos es pues la seguridad.
Their opinions differ. Some people think that Monterrey is equally unsafe for both, and some other people think that women are more vulnerable. At night, company matters.
According to our surveys, the 45.3% of women feel more safe walking with a known man on a lonely street. And for men, the 24.5% feel less safe with a known woman walking in a lonely street.
Our surveys, the 40% agree that the gender influence how safety is experienced in public spaces, but our interviews say different.
Gender shapes the kind of risk, but still, the place and situation decides the moment. The conclusion is no.
Respondents to a Pew Research survey reported strong concerns about men being dismissed for sexual harassment without hearing all the facts, with 51% agreeing that men today have difficulty knowing how to appropriately interact with women in the workplace, causing social tension and modified behavior out of the fear of being false accused and having their reputation destroyed.
Speaking about social media, one of the most content was Reddit, where people share their experiences and personal stories. A post by a man where he talks about a time when he was accused by the girls of being weird and making them feel uncomfortable when he was doing nothing. And another one of where a woman didn't understand why it was so hard for men to understand how insecure they felt when a man is with them alone. We tested whether a specific male fear alters public behavior.
Most of the males interviewed say that they are used to change their behavior when treated women, but that doesn't necessarily have to do with the fear of being falsely accused.
Yo a veces que estoy caminando y hay una mujer enfrente de mí, trato de caminar más lento para que se vaya más lejos o a rebasarla, porque pues no se vaya a malinterpretar. Incluso a la mitad del día, en la mañana.
Siento que si es una persona que tiene como que cierto estatus, sí suele como que creérsele más o dársele más apoyo, pero a la vez hay muchas víctimas a las cuales no les creen. Entonces siento que sí es como que una brecha muy marcada entre a quienes sí le creen y a quienes no.
Así es bastante difícil que le crean a una mujer y se ocupan pues sí suficiente evidencia que a lo mejor a veces es bastante difícil de conseguir en estos casos, más si conocen como que a la otra más, o sea, más si conocen como que a la persona acusada.
No siento que sea injustificado, o sea, siento que hay, y pues mientras siga habiendo esta disparidad debería de haber de que ese privilegio, porque igual a ellas son las que tienen el no privilegio de ser las más agredidas.
In our survey, 50.7% of respondents rated 4 to 5 that false accusations are frequent and significant. Nearly as many, 48.9, felt men's fear of such accusations affect the way they interact with women. And when asked about social credibility in an accusation, most said there's no real difference, 55.2%, while 26.6% thought men are believed more and 18.2% thought women are.
Of caution interactions are there, but the motives are mixed. Civility, ambiguity, and the context all play a role. The conclusion is null.
In conclusion, according to our investigation, the perception of violence depends mostly on the environment or zone you are in, since both men and women feel almost equally vulnerable to suffering violence in the city. The only time when their perception changes is when they consider the crimes they could be a victim of.
Our solution to the gender gap in safety perceptions in Monterrey is to strengthen education from an early age, teaching respect, equality, and awareness about gender violence, so new generations can grow with a mindset that reduces fear, promotes trust, and builds safer communities for both men and women. We intend to do this by making resources like safety precautions available to as many people in Monterrey as possible through an accessible database. In addition, we will run a campaign to raise awareness about the importance of reporting violence to the authorities. Feeling safe matters as much as being safe. Better lighting and better signals change how we move. My experience with this research helped me broaden my perspective on the many issues surrounding gender violence in recent years. I was able to consider new perspectives and understand how these issues affect the lives of both men and women, and how they have shaped our modern society.
With this research, I was able to understand the factors that cause people to perceive insecurity and danger. I think the promotion of campaigns and the education of people about gender gap is important so everyone can know what they can do for a change.
With this research, I could further understand the complexities of individual perceptions and safety. The way that we process things and feel fear is a very personal experience, and it varies from person to person, so it's very interesting to learn. And this also made me realize how much the city is lacking in safety support for both men and women, and how important it is for us to come up with solutions to help this issue for future generations.
In my personal experience as a man, this activity helped me deepen my understanding of women's struggles in the public space, making me realize how complex and deeply rooted in our society the problem is, as well as the reality of what really worries and affects women.
This helped me realize that the results might vary from different selections of people you ask. It will not be the same depending on the experiences and their surroundings. People live in their own world, but this kind of investigation can make you understand and see through other people's eyes.